Jim, are you feeling all right?
What's going on?
Jim's got the flu.
Sounds horrible. Should quarantine ourselves in here.
Yeah, but he's got to do review roulette for Monday.
Well, I bet there's something else we can do.
Want to just make the podcast Monday's episode?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's do that. Live from the world of my apartment, I guess, in the messy state that I'm in. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the State of Gaming. Hello, patrons of Gaming Wildlife. This is your director, and I'm here with my good friend Adam from Cold Steel Games. How's it going?
Not going too bad, honestly.
Awesome.
Good to be here again.
Yeah, episode 2, we've got some stuff that we want to talk about. First things first, though, if I may be a little nepotistic, the Kansas Jayhawks, which is my alumni the university that I come from, we just won our 11th Big 12 title, which is a big deal for a lot of us. We're all very happy about that. And so I'm going to be sporting some Kansas Jayhawks t-shirt today because we're great and stuff and whatever. Rock Chalk Jayhawks, go KU.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So Adam, do you have anything that you would like to talk about today before we dive into the world of the state of gaming?
Honestly, no. I guess I have a topic we could talk about later on if it gets a bit slow. But other than that, I'm ready to see what we have on offer.
Well, then we will dive right into one of the things that I've wanted to talk about because, holy crap, Steam machines are finally coming out. Oh my god, I've been waiting for these things forever. There's a whole bunch of different articles from GDC about Valve announcing Source 2 Steam machines. They're going to be releasing their controllers, and one thing that I'm actually thinking is going to be really cool, something called Steam Link.
Oh, I haven't heard of that. I heard about Source 2 and like the Steam VR, but not.
Well, Steam Link, from what it looks like, is going to be a $50 streaming service where you can basically connect it to your computer. It'll be able to broadcast to any other TV that you have the games that you have on your computer. So if you've already got a tower that can play video games, you could broadcast that, say, to your living room and stream the games through your living room computer.
Oh, so it's kind of like the PlayStation TV.
Mm-hmm. In a way, it was also, there was a system a while back that tried to do the same thing. I can't remember what it was called, but it basically had a streaming service where you could play
OnLive.
OnLive, thank you. Yes, I never used OnLive, but
no, I had it on my laptop. At one point, a couple of years ago, I had like one of their free games they were offering up. The service was pretty bad, to be honest. It was very artifacty and it lagged quite a lot, and just wasn't very enjoyable, really.
But yeah, so what do you think about that? That we're finally actually going to be getting the Steam machines after all this time.
Well, Steam machines, let's see here. It's interesting because originally with the reports we heard about the XI3 piston. I don't know if you remember the XI3 piston.
I mean, I've seen specs for like several different machines. Which one specifically was that?
The XI3 piston was the small, like GameCube-looking device. I assume you can find it in post or put an image of it or something.
Yeah, future Ian, go ahead and put that in post.
Yeah, but it was it's a box, a very small box that contains specifically made architected small graphics cards and CPUs and so on. And it's made for basically as a Steam box, as a LAN party, for LAN parties.
Yeah.
And the problem with it was severely underpowered. I believe in the tests back in 2012, bearing in mind this costs, let's see, about $1,000 in your money, and it could run Far Cry 3 on medium. at 30 FPS.
For $1,000, I could
Oh,
build
yeah.
a tower for 800 that plays Crisis on high.
There you go, see? I mean, I spent £1,600 on my thing over there, but that's bleeding edge. But anyways, the XI3, yeah, and they announced this at, I think it was Consumer Electronic Expo 2012.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of said, hey, we're in conjunction with Steam Boxes, it's going to be awesome. And Valve turned around and said, no, you aren't.
Mm-mm.
You're not in conjunction with us. We don't know you. You've just made a terrible little box and slapped our names on it.
Yeah.
And then it faded back into obscurity and it's kind of been forgotten now. Though even in more recent memory, I don't know if you've heard about the Alienware Alpha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is sort of the resurgence of these Steam boxes, whereas that was like the more like it's the official first Steam box.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the XI3 website. It's like 2012, early 2013.
Mm-hmm. Well, from what I'm reading, because there's several different articles about what Valve is announcing at GDC. The big thing is that in November they're going to be announcing their streaming software, the first controllers, which they're going to be releasing, and supposedly we're going to get the first set of Steam machines around there. Now, I basically have just, because I've got a Steam library of like 200 games, maybe 300 games or something. No, I've been buying Steam games since like 2009, and I've got just so many of them at this point. I've been really itching for something that can play Steam games on in my living room, because I don't always want to be.
Definitely see why.
Yeah, I don't always want to be cooped up in my office, as some people.
Yeah, you don't want to be sat at a desk all the time. You might want to like lay back, like using a console and just play it with a controller. It makes sense. Yeah.
Which is why I'm really excited about the Steam Link, because this way I'd be able to, because my computer is 4 years old now, though I've been keeping it really in really good condition. The one thing it can't do very well is dual screen, dual monitors. But other than that, it can run Crysis really well. It can run pretty much any game I put into it.
Nice.
It was having a little bit of trouble with. I was having a little bit of trouble with Alien Isolation, so I guess that one's just a little too new for it. But
yeah,
I mean, just to be able to load up the computer, download a whole bunch of games, hell, to be able to play Fallout 3 without having to use my roommate's PlayStation 3, because Fallout 3 does not run very well on the PlayStation 3, nor does Fallout New Vegas.
A friend of mine lent me New Vegas back in 2011 on PS3, and it was very unpleasant.
Oh yeah, and somehow I was able to actually get all the way through New Vegas on PlayStation 3, despite the fact that I'd be frequently just sitting there for about 3 minutes just waiting for the loading screen to get through.
I broke my New Vegas on PC because I tried modding it with Nexus Mod Manager.
Yeah.
And I put too many things on, and now it doesn't work.
I always use, whenever I want to mod Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3, I always use the Fallout subreddit. They've got a really good how-to guide for how to deal with mods and how to not put too many things in there. But I've been very wary of the Steam machines in general, because, well, mostly because I've got a custom built desktop, but also it's the idea with the Steam machines is that it's supposed to be able to compete with home consoles, and like what's the Xbox One down to now? Is it still 500 or is it 400?
In our money, it's about £330. So that translates. I don't know if they changed the currencies around, but it might be like $300 in our money. I really don't know.
It's I'm not 100% on the pounds to dollars exchange rate, but I just know
the dollar is like 60. A dollar is 60 pence. So.
Okay. So it would essentially so for us in the States it would still be about like $400 to $500 for an.
I'd say probably like 350
Mm-hmm.
probably.
So it would be about $350 for an Xbox One. I would say probably still about $400 for a PlayStation. The thing is, if Steam machines want to be able to compete with consoles, they need to be able to get down to that price. And
They do. Yes.
my desktop, when I first built it, it was actually built for me by a friend of mine. He was building computers as a hobby, and by the time he had built this thing, it was state of the art. 3 months later, he built a new one that was then state of the art. Sold me this one for half the price of what he built it. So he built it for $1,600. I got it for $800. And 4 years later, it's still doing great. But the thing is that this thing could play Crysis at top of the line back in 2011. So now we just need to. The thing is, we need to be able to get Steam machines to be able to be that good for that price, and I'm not 100% that they'll be able to do that.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with that. It's like, again, I'll bring up the example of the Alienware Alpha. That is what I believe in. I don't think Alienware is that good. I mean, anyone with an Alienware PC, But if you look at Alienware themselves, if I'm going to head over to the website now.
Yeah.
And you have a look at their most basic form of their alpha, and this is basically it's a console-sized PC, so effectively it is a Steam box.
Yeah.
The most basic version, which runs 4 gigabytes of RAM, 4th gen i3 with a 2 gigabytes GTX hybrid GDDR5 CPU. That's not incredibly powerful. It isn't, no, but that for most things can handle most games. I mean, if you go up like less than 30 quid, you instantly get 8 gig of RAM and an i5, so that's probably a better deal. Again, it's still low end.
Yeah.
But specs of the thing aren't that bad.
It's better than the PlayStation 2 and Xbox 3, or PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. What am I doing? It's still, because a lot of people are still playing games on those.
They are. I mean, I was until October, so.
I mean, hell, my roommate bought the Mass Effect trilogy for his PlayStation 3, and despite the fact that there are really long loading times, it actually runs pretty damn well on the PlayStation 3. So there's ways to be able to make the games playable on these systems. It's just that with if you're going to be running Steam machines on a Linux-based operating system, you're going to want to be able to customize and change how the game runs like it does with a traditional PC.
Yeah, I agree. And I reckon that when Steam comes out with these specific patented, designs and all integrated SteamOS machines and so on, they won't be very upgradable because they'll be so tightly engineered to be small form factor.
Yeah.
We're gonna run into the problem that it won't be, it'll basically be like an upgraded PS4. And I mean, you might be able to put like more RAM and another graphics card in, but you won't be able to upgrade it like you would a tower, for example.
I'm worried that they might get into the habit that Apple gets into, that they'll release a new version every year with slightly upgraded hardware, and people will just end up buying the new version every year. I suppose that's a bit more streamlined, but hell, I just like for $200, I just got a GTX 950. Installed it onto my tower, and it seems to be running things a hell of a lot better. So now I can run games better. All I had to spend was $200. I had to make sure everything was okay, and I actually had a friend help me out with it so that I didn't shock my system. The last time I tried to upgrade my system, I accidentally shocked it, and it was kind of shut down for about 12 hours or so. That was my fault. The other thing that Valve announced was Source 2.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of jump on the hype train just a little bit, but the last time that they said Half-Life 3. Let's just talk about it. The last time they said that they would officially release the next installment of Half-Life when they were finished with Source 2. And it looks like Source 2 is going to be finally released, and we've been seeing some screenshots of Left 4 Dead 3, so it's natural to assume that Half-Life 3 is going to follow. I'm not 100% on the third installment of Half-Life.
Really?
I've said before that I'm not a big fan of Half-Life 2. It's not a bad game, but it didn't really impact me as well as Half-Life 1 did.
Understandable.
Say what?
Understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, Half-Life 2 was. It's strange because you look at Half-Life 2 and you see the Source engine, and that was like its infancy, and now it's at the end of its life. But you see it then, and it's revolutionary. I mean, Half-Life 2 looked amazing for the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially like look at the facial animations and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, though, with Source Engine 2, well, I hope that we will see Half-Life 3 in a couple of years. I hope that we will see it.
I'd like to see where the story goes. My big problem is that Half-Life 3 was supposed to be Episode 3 because Valve had announced we're working on an episodic series for Half-Life 2, so they had Episode 1, then Episode 2, and then just nothing happened. And obviously we said this with the Valve video that we did last year. Well, I guess it was a year and a half now that we did the Valve video.
Oh, yeah.
That we thought that the reason we think that they've delayed this so much is because Steam took off as a video game buying system. I mean, the fact that Steam became so huge in 2007 for selling other video games, and the fact that the last actual installment of Half-Life also came out in 2007 makes me believe that maybe Valve was just like, wow, we're working so hard on making this online distribution system so good, maybe we should just stop developing games. I mean, every game since then has been developed by an outside source.
Definitely, yeah.
Portal was made by an outside team. Well,
yeah,
and then they were hired to be internally part of Valve. Left 4 Dead was made by an outside team, and then they were hired internally to be a part of Valve. Valve really hasn't developed their own games since 2007. And so
we don't make games, we make money.
Yeah, I still love Valve, and obviously I've got hundreds of games on Steam, so obviously people could say I'm a little bit of a hypocrite with that episode, but we're just here to make fun of them. But if Half-Life 3 does actually come out this time, I'm going to be excited, but I'm going to be hesitantly excited because I don't feel like it can really live up to the amount of hype. I mean, it's become the new Duke Nukem Forever, basically.
I don't think that's a really accurate comparison. I mean, Duke Nukem Forever was doomed from the start, really, whereas Half-Life 3 or Half-Life 2 Episode 3, Valve don't make bad games.
No.
They just don't. Whereas a company like 3D Realms made their bad share of games.
Yeah.
And Gearbox made their bad share of games. Cough, Borderlands.
Oh, you don't like Borderlands?
No. My brother over there, he loves Borderlands. I just can't get into it. I mean, with Aliens, Colonial Marines, let's not, forget about that.
Colonial Marines was horrid.
So Duke Nukem Forever was kind of DOA. Whereas Half-Life has more of a chance. I can understand why you're hesitant. I don't think it'll live up to the hype, but it'll be a damn good game regardless, I think.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something fun. So, Adam, do you watch Star Trek at all?
It's weird. I've always wanted to sit down and watch the series. I watched the first, J.J. Abrams film. I haven't watched Into Darkness, and I've watched a few episodes of Voyager now and again, but I don't watch it religiously, no.
Well, I've been a big fan of Star Trek for a lot of my life, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Leonard Nimoy, who passed away.
Yeah.
Who passed away this last week. And it makes me a bit sad because, well, it makes me sad, but we've kind of seen it coming because he's been dealing, I can't remember what the disease was. Future Ian can probably put up the actual name of the disease, but from what I understood, it was a form of cancer that he had been dealing for a while. And the fact that he got to live to age 83 is pretty awesome while living with that.
Older than most people.
Yeah, Star Trek Online which I used to play sometimes, is going to erect an official standing in-game memorial to Leonard Nimoy in the
That's
game.
good.
I think that's a pretty cool thing that
It is, yeah.
uh, it's one of the things that I wish like more people would do. I feel like because there was a developer who passed away a few years ago who helped work on the Fallout 3 and New Vegas series as well as other stuff with Bethesda. Future Ian, you could probably point out who that is. But I just thought it was really nice to be able to see Star Trek Online and go, hey, you know what? Leonard Nimoy was such a big influence on the game. He did a lot of voice acting for them, and it's nice to see them pay a nice tribute to the man. I've been a big Star Trek fan a lot of my life. I love the movies in various different ways, and even the new films, which the second one I wasn't a big fan of, but the first one I thought was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was good to see Leonard Nimoy in there as well. I actually really liked his role in the film. So you saw Star Trek 2009. What was your opinions on it?
It's weird. I watched it. God, so in 2009 feels like years for me. It really does.
Yeah.
I can't really remember that much about it, other than the fact that there was a lot of lens flares, shouting, and I don't know. I think I was distracted by the lens flares, really.
Well, J.J. Abrams. I've been following Abrams for a while now as a director, and he said, despite the fact that he also did lens flares in Super 8, he said that it was just what was it? It was a creative choice that he wanted to put those in for Star Trek, but he doesn't really want to do it for all of his films.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked. I thought Leonard Nimoy's character, despite the fact that Star Trek 2009 is basically just spectacle, like a lot of spectacle, without a whole lot of substance. I actually really liked Nimoy's character in the film. I thought they did a good job with him and made him a lot of fun while also being kind of a more serious. While also playing to Spock's serious parts as well, but still he could have fun with it.
Yeah.
The first line he says is just so brilliant. He turns around and goes, "How'd you find me?" That makes me laugh. I thought it was great.
Fair enough.
Right. So let's talk about something controversial.
Okay.
Let's talk about big boobs in video games.
Dead or alive, jiggle physics.
Exactly, actually. This is what I wanted to talk about.
Yes.
Team Ninja. You're familiar with...
Sits back.
Say what?
Sits back.
Oh, boy.
Sits back in chair.
Alright, so Team Ninja is a fairly well-known developer at this point for making the Dead or Alive series with big boob physics and stuff. So, because right now in the games industry, there's a lot of people wanting more balance when it comes to gender politics in video games. And the Team Ninja recently went on record saying that they're not going to change what they're doing with their series. They say that there's here. Let me tell you an actual quote that they say. When they're talking, they were asked about the fact that they keep making their characters big boobed and kind of overly sexualized. They say, I tell you this question. This is a question that pops up a lot, and I've personally answered it in many different ways. This is our position. It's not that we're ignorant and that we don't know what's going on. We're very conscious with what happened and with the Gamergate issues of last year and the objectification of women in entertainment, misogyny, all of it. We are very aware. However, when you look at a game like Dead or Alive, the minute you turn on the game, it's in a very otherworld fantasy type of environment. I don't think it takes much to figure out that this has very little to do with the real world. Our women, our males, our environments are not relatable to real people. So in a sense, our theme of fantasy, we feel as though we have absolutely every right to show off beautiful characters how we see fit. More like... We're not having these beautiful women to be abused and treated unfairly in our game. They're just as powerful as a male character. They're balanced in that sense that they're equal. And we have a tradition with having voluptuous characters just because people have personal issues in their daily lives with the treatment of women. I don't think that necessarily correlates to them. It purely comes down to a design issue, and I don't feel like we should apologize for that. Now, people watching this on YouTube and listening to this can take this with the biggest grain of salt they need. I consider myself a feminist.
Oh.
And I agree with Team Ninja's statement.
Yeah.
I feel as that it's their games and they've made these this way for so long. These games do kind of appear to be some sort of a fantasy world. It's not really
I would agree, yeah.
grounded in reality. They have every right to say we kind of just like making our games this way. And to be honest, like I've played Dead or Alive for like an hour, maybe. Total community. I've never really been big into the game because the game is what it is. It's big boobed women and muscly men running around punching each other, and then the Extreme Beach volleyball series. I've watched the Game Grumps play that, which that was funny. But beyond that, I've never really been big into the series, but they have a right to be able to make the games like this.
Of course they do. But I mean, I'll bring up two issues I have now. First thing, they also made Ninja Gaiden and Metroid Other M.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about Metroid Other M though. They made Ninja Gaiden.
Yes.
Ninja Gaiden 2, it's fucking awesome, and Ninja Gaiden 3 is fucking awesome. Ninja Gaiden 3 is less awesome, but still pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's true that some of the women are, they're big-breasted, they're there to be saved. It just, oh look, it happens. The thing is though, Ninja Gaiden, I mean, was it ever supposed to be played straight? I don't think it was.
No, I don't think so. I think, given how hard the game is, I don't think it was ever supposed to be played straight. Like, this does kind of bring up the idea of, are we creating worlds that are supposed to be, grounded in reality? Because I'll give for an example Dead Space. Future Ian.
Fucking love Dead Space.
Okay, Dead Space I'm kind of back and forth on. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is kind of fun. Sometimes not. But Future Ian, go ahead and put up like a quick still from the opening of Dead Space. One of the women on there has like gigantic D-cup breasts. And I always wondered, it's like, was that really necessary for this particular game? Like with Dead or Alive, yeah, it's a fantasy world, but with Dead Space, I'm just like, is there a point to that? Like, does she need to have those massive tits on for this particular game? And it does sort of feel like that a lot of games are trying to cater still to the idea that only teenage boys play video games, and that's something that developers really need to grow out of, and that's something that consumers need to stop buying. But at the same time, I don't think we need to eliminate all types of games that are like that.
No, we don't.
Dead or Alive, no one has ever really taken that game seriously. I don't think anyone ever stopped to think like, well, this is a very serious fighting game, a very meaningful fighting game. No, it's pretty people punching each other. I mean,
no one's ever sat there and demanded character complexity from a Dead or Alive character.
No, that's not the point of the game.
Okay, and I'm saying this as someone who doesn't mind the jiggle physics in Dead or Alive, Extreme Beach Volleyball, as a homosexual male who doesn't like women. So yeah, take that as what you will.
Yeah.
But at least in my eyes, I mean, I don't really care about big-chested women or anything like that. So I'm just gonna throw in my views on this. The way people are bringing up these women, oh look, this woman has massive tits, or this woman flaunts around a lot in scantily clad clothing and doesn't really have a personality. People can say, oh well, that's objectifying women, that's stereotyping women, right?
Yeah.
Look at like most games in the industry. Look at BioShock, God of War. These are power fantasies. I mean, like again, God of War. You play as a big beefcake who goes around ripping the heads off of people like they were fucking fruits, you know? How is that not objectifying men in the same way? It's a massive guy going on a rampage. It's a massive kick-ass power fantasy.
Yeah, it is the whole power fantasy thing. I mean, like, hell, we should basically just do an entire episode where we talk about like the sexualization of anyone in video games. But I just want to say I appreciate the fact that Team Ninja goes, we're aware of the problems, but you know what? We're not going to change who we are. These are the kind of games we like to make. We don't think they're misogynistic. They're kind of fantasy in this other world realm. Yes, people like big boob ladies and they like the jiggle physics and all that. And we're not going to change that because that's just kind of part of who we are.
Yes.
For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you may have noticed that Dan has now entered the room. Say hi, Dan.
I'm gonna punch you in the gab or smell me mom.
That's not cool, man. So, next topic I wanted to talk about before we get to the big topic of the episode, which Adam, I know you're gonna have a lot of fun with. This next one, Adam, do you play Metal Gear at all?
Kinda, in the fact that I've started up Solid, I've played a bit of the third one, and a little bit of some other ones.
Well,
but
Hideo Kojima has gone on record saying that Metal Gear Solid 5 is the last Metal Gear Solid.
Oh.
What do you think about that?
Well, I know that, my boyfriend, he plays a lot of the Metal Gear games. He's quite into them. I still have to go and, play the backlog of them, but
yeah.
I kind of think that 5 is enough. As long as hell, I'd like there to be more Metal Gear games, but Metal Gear Solid was a focused, sort of small-scale stealth game, and the second one you play as Raiden, the third one, wasn't that Snake Eater? And then you had Peace Walker on PSP, I played that one as well.
The third one was about Big Boss, and 5 supposedly is also going to be about Big Boss as well, because 4 concluded the story between Solid Snake and between Solid and Liquid, and then 5 is supposedly going to conclude the story of Big Boss. So Kojima actually went on record saying, I always say this will be the last Metal Gear, but the games in the series that I've personally designed and worked on, Metal Gear 1, or Metal Gear on MSX, MG2, MGS1, 2, 3, 4, Peace Walker, and now 5, are what constitute a single Metal Gear saga. With 5, I'm going to close the loop on that saga. So, from what it sounds like, it's not necessarily the last Metal Gear game, but it is the end of all these stories that he's been making.
That's fair enough, to be honest. I mean, we had Rising Revengeance, I reckon as soon as Solid ends, we'll just have more Rising games.
That would kind of be interesting, though Kojima wasn't directly designing Revengeance. I believe he just produced that one. Future Ian can probably verify that, but yeah, it's this whole series that has been starting with the original Metal Gear games on the NES is finally kind of coming to a close. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I did play a bit of the NES one. Not very much. I found it kind of frustrating, but
yeah.
I did play a bit of it, and well, I think that it's good. I mean, things have to end eventually, and if it's to tell a cohesive narrative, then why not end it? I mean, why keep something going if there's no more stories to tell? Why not just have it end with a nice resolution instead of dragging it out constantly?
Yeah. The thing is, though, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
It's like, with Breaking Bad. I'll just bring that up as an example.
Yeah.
It had 5 series. Had a distinctive beginning and an end. Slight ambiguity toward the end, but it ended. And there are some people that want more Breaking Bad. That's kind of why we have Better Call Saul. And there were others who are glad that it's finished and we got a good story.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid is going to be the same way. As soon as it finishes, there'll be some that'll clap and be, thanks for 15, 16 years of the Solid games. Been a fantastic trilogy. Or not trilogy, a fantastic saga.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic. I'm glad that it never really got bad at any point. If you're iffy on MGS4, then yeah. But and there are going to be those who are like, oh no, I want more Metal Gear Solid. I want to see this guy's character, this guy's story fleshed out. Where's this guy's trilogy?
Yeah.
And I don't think that stories need to be dragged out. I mean, unnecessary sequels weren't necessary. If 5 is the one that ends it, let it end.
Yeah. The one thing that I did notice playing Metal Gear Solid 4 is that it did sort of seem to conclude a lot of the stories already. It was the conclusion of Solid Snake. It was the conclusion of Liquid Snake. It was bringing to an end like so many different stories, and yet somehow still, because a lot of people have said that Kojima just overloads a lot of these games with way too many cutscenes. Like they go overboard with the cutscenes more than Square Enix does with their games. And so like I'm wondering if you can actually bring to a conclusion a game that already feels like it's way too padded, and yet somehow we're still looking at Metal Gear Solid 5 as being the final conclusion where we see the end of Big Boss and the proper end to the series after we've concluded Solid and Liquid stories from the last one. Despite that fact, it's still probably going to be like 50 hours of just so many cutscenes.
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
They'll find a way to milk it.
well, of course they will.
Of course they will.
I
Yeah.
mean, hell, Revengeance was just a silly hack and slash cut 'em up that felt very much like Ninja Gaiden in a way. So
Especially
anyway,
the third game.
all right, so let's get to the topic of the episode. Adam, you did a rant recently about a really popular game that just had a new installment come out. I want to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's.
Let's do it.
I've been watching Markiplier's Let's Plays, and I have downloaded the game, played it myself, and gone through a little bit of the third installment. I've got a pretty good grasp on what the story is supposed to be for the third installment, and so the topic for the remainder of this episode is going to be: have we had too many Five Nights at Freddy's games already?
Yes.
Now, I know. Now, this is why I wanted to do this topic, because I knew you were going to say yes. I am not 100% certain. Because if you know the story of the second game, you know that there were still two other restaurants prior to the restaurant that you're playing at in the second game.
Yeah.
The big thing that I found so confusing is that the third game takes place in present times. It's 30.
Yes.
Well, actually, the third game would actually take place 10 years from now if we're following the storyline correctly. That a new attraction has opened up, essentially a haunted house for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Based on the stories.
Based on the stories that happened in the first two games. So, this really kind of threw me for a loop because I was really kind of confused about the game, because I thought that the third game would be, this is how the whole thing started. We're now going to go back to the first restaurant after the first kid has already died, and we're going to find out more about the purple guy who is the ultimate killer. Dan, you can stay if you want. Okay, so Dan's going to go do stuff. But the thing is that this third game, first of all, the gameplay itself, I love the gameplay of the third game, because the one thing that I'm loving about Scott Cawthon is that he's reinventing the gameplay with each game. Yes, you're still technically sitting by yourself in a little room, but like the first game, you're constantly having to worry about your battery power running out. The second game, you're having to constantly worry about running out of the music box and the flashlight. But if you run out of power of the flashlight, you can still win. Whereas basically running out of power in the first game is kind of a death sentence.
Yeah.
In this game, the jump scares don't even kill you this time. There's only one that kills you.
Hallucination.
Yeah.
Hallucinations with, oh Christ, what's the
Springtrap.
Springtrap. I keep thinking Sparkplug for some reason.
So, let's go ahead and put up a big spoiler warning, because I am going to reveal.
Spoiler warning.
I'm going to reveal the ending of this game.
Okay.
After you beat the final night, you get a cut. Well, you get the 8-bit video game where the fifth spirit, the spirit of.
Do you mean the 2600 cutaways?
Yeah, the 2600 cutaways. The final game has you play as the spirit of the kid, of the actual kid, the first kid who dies, and he confronts Purple Guy. If you beat, I believe if you beat the fifth night, you confront Purple Guy, Purple Guy jumps into Springtrap's suit, and then Springtrap springs, killing Purple Guy. Which means that the entire third game, the killer, Purple Guy, has been the dude who has been coming after you. And all these hallucinations are based off the fact that he dismantled all the other animatronics, and Springtrap is made up of parts from all the other animatronics.
Yeah.
So when Purple Guy gets in the Springtrap, the trap spring, and he dies, and the kids basically then drift away. The spirits of the 5 children he killed can finally rest in peace now that Purple Guy's dead, except that now they're partially being possessed by Springtrap.
Yeah.
And so the ending of Night 5 shows that you get the bad ending because the spirits are still there. They're still trapped in all the different parts that Springtrap put together. But then if you beat the 6th night once again, you show that the spirits have now moved on. They have left they have finally left and supposedly have moved on to another plane. This is suggesting that the third game is the final installment.
It won't be.
It won't be. These games are making a buttload of money, and Scott seems to have I'm kind of back and forth on this. I'm not 100% sure if this actually will be the last installment, but it kind of feels like it could be. The thing is that we thought that the third game was going to take place during the first Freddy Fazbear's Diner before it became Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But the thing is that this jump into the future feels like it's trying to conclude the series, but it also kind of feels like it comes out of left field. What do you think about the fact that this story takes place 30 years in the future, that it's pretty much nothing related to the first two other than the fact that, oh, we're opening a haunted house based off of the horror stories of the first two?
Well, here's my opinion. I'm gonna basically just regurgitate what I said in my rant video,
Yeah.
but I'll try and.
Future Ian, put up a link.
Yes, go and watch it, please. Plug. Anyways, so with Five Nights at Freddy's, I think that Scott Cawthon, he's produced an amazing phenomenon in the horror genre.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's was such a unique idea. It was
Yes.
so well executed. It was, because it preyed on our primal fears.
Mm-hmm.
We can't move. We have to sit there and watch ourselves be killed. We're defenseless.
Yeah.
And that was fantastic because it breaks away from Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6.
Oh, God, yes.
These action-heavy, testosterone-filled, quotations, survival horror games. It brought us back to real survival horror, and that's fantastic.
I do feel like, though, Amnesia was the one that really kind of brought us back to real survival horror. I just feel like Scott Cawthon has sort of elevated it to another level that Amnesia was kind of starting. But, yeah, go ahead and continue.
Well, and I believe, for one, I can't blame Scott Cawthon for making these 3 games in such rapid succession. I really can't, because if I was making that much money off a fairly easy-to-make game, because if you've done the research on Scott Cawthon, you will know that he's made many games with that sort of engine, that sort of style and stuff.
Yeah, he used to make Christian games, supposedly, which is kind of interesting, because these games are so, creepy and horrific. I'm just like, you used to make Christian games? Where did these ideas come from?
Except with Five Nights at Freddy's, again, they're really sort of cheap and not really easy, but they're fairly simple to make.
Yeah.
So we can get them out in a very quick time. And people love the games, and they're going to keep loving the games until they get burnt out on them.
Mm-hmm. That is the one thing that I'm worried about, because I love these games and I love the story they've created. I am worried that
the lore in these games is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
The whole overarching story is brilliant,
mm-hmm.
and that was my point. The third game, 30 years in the future, it sets up 5 or 6 games in between the first game and the third game. Now we have 30 years.
Yeah.
Of stories and games to tell. It feels like the end, but also the beginning.
The thing is that the way that the game ends with Purple Guy finally dying because he gets caught in Springtrap, it feels like this could be a proper conclusion. We know that Scott Cawthorn's going to come out with more games, and I honestly think there's only one more story he can tell, and that is how all this got started and whether or not Phone Guy is actually Springtrap. The third game suggests that Phone Guy is not actually Springtrap, and that because in the 2600 mini games, Purple Guy disassembles Foxy. Purple Guy disassembles Foxy and reassembles all of them to create Springtrap. But the thing is that Phone Guy has always said he liked Foxy. He always said, Foxy was his favorite, and I can't really bring myself to seeing Purple Guy and Phone Guy being the same thing if he's going to dismantle his favorite animatronic.
Yeah.
And the fact but there is still, I feel as though there is still one more story to tell, and that is just how all this got started. And we go back to the first Freddy Fazbear's Diner, where he killed the first kid, and then the second diner where he killed the other 4 kids. So we would basically get the security guard at the first Freddy Fazbear's Diner when all the murders started happening. I feel like that's the only story we have left, because though you say this has created a 30-year gap where a whole bunch of other stuff could have happened, the way that the story happens in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, it makes it sound like after the first game, the stores were shut down, and Purple Guy, in the process, after the security guard left, Purple Guy was no, actually, the way that the games play out, actually, Purple Guy disassembling all the animatronics seems like the thing that had happened. It feels like that happens immediately after Phone Guy dies. But then what happens is that while he's assembling Springtrap, the ghosts of all the kids come back to haunt him, causing him to jump into Springtrap to save himself and then dying himself. Which means that there's nothing more to continue. Purple Guy has always been the one key element that continues this, and at the beginning of the game, the new guy who sounds sort of like a like a surfer dude's like, hey bruh, we put together this cool like horror themed restaurant something. This horror thing, because based off Five Nights at Freddy's. It sounds like finding the animatronic of Springtrap was something that they hadn't discovered for like 30 years, because Springtrap is old, decrepit, and decaying. Yeah. And in the original in the 6400 mini games, Springtrap is brand new because he had just put together all the pieces into a golden Springtrap costume.
Yeah.
But since at the beginning of the game they say, we just found an old animatronic, and the old animatronic is old and decaying, it makes it seem like for 30 years nothing has happened. There is no other game. All the other animatronics are taken apart. They found parts to all the other ones, but none of them have any of the essences of the child, except for Springtrap, which has all 5 of the ghosts inside it, and the ghost of Purple Guy. This does kind of feel like this is the proper conclusion.
And I will admit, if it does turn out that Five Nights 3 was the end and I was wrong, I'll go on record and I'll say, hey, my bad. You know, I've had to admit that I've had to go back on my words a couple times in the rant videos.
Yeah,
that just happens. It comes to the territory. But I really do think that there'll be more games. They'll find some angle on it, because the lore in Five Nights, as you've just explained for the past 5 or 10 minutes, is so fascinating. And the fact that we literally get IV dripped it. They drip it.
Yeah.
Drip as tiniest bits of information, smallest amounts, game by game by game, that we won't have a full, complete story until we get 5 or 6 more games into it. And I do reckon the next couple of years we'll see those games.
Yeah. It could be like that. I do, because the Game Theorists put together 2 really good episodes explaining the lore of the game, and they really kind of went in depth.
Yeah, they did.
Oh yeah, I love the Game Theorists. Those guys are awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they say about Five Nights 3, and if they basically just touch upon all the things I just said. Um, like I said, I feel like there's one more story that he can tell that maybe he was going to tell for the third game, but then instead it decided to wrap up Purple Guy's arc by killing him off and then making all the spirits of the kids sort of be able to move on to the next life so that all the haunting of the animatronics can stop.
Yeah.
It does feel like it can be a conclusion, but it also kind of feels like we could get another story out of this by showing the origins of where Purple Guy came from, why he started to do this, and who were the kids that he killed. Were they just random kids, or was this something more serious? I feel like there's one more story we can tell, but you're right. We're probably going to see Scott make like 3 or 4 more games out of this because they're just really fun to play.
And that's the thing is that in my rant, in my general opinion, I wasn't bashing the games.
Mhm.
I think the games are really good. I was bashing the release schedule, really, if anything.
It would have been smarter for him.
It does seem a little too soon in places. It really does.
Yeah. What's that, Dan?
It would have been smarter for him to release it, space it out more, instead of releasing it as quick as he did.
Except that by releasing it as quick as he did, he probably made a shit ton of money off of these. I mean, hell, with Markiplier's video, his first video on Five Nights at Freddy's got 25 million views, and that's more than any other video he's ever done. Up until that point, he had made maybe like 6 million off of one of his montages, but since then, this thing has just become one of the biggest things ever because it's a really good storytelling, B, a really good horror story, and C, just a really fun game, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, that was, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the podcast of The State of Gaming. At the end, as always, I like to be a little nepotistic and be like, hey, Adam, what are we working on right now?
Alright, excellent, because I can actually give you a decent answer instead of last time where I was like, just stuff.
Okay.
So, this week on my channel, which I assume will be linked below somewhere.
Yep. I forgot the link last time, and not only that, I will actually put an annotation, and it will be throughout the entire video saying, this is Adam's channel, go check out his stuff.
Typical Ian.
Yes. Typical Ian forgetting things.
Which would be pretty fantastic.
Mm.
Well, if you didn't check out last week's episode, or you never got to the end, to this part, my channel, I mainly do rant videos. I talk about things like Peter Molyneux, paid channels, that dress, obviously Five Nights, and The Order. And I play a lot of games too, like Doctor and Dead Space and FTL and so on. And yeah, I'm basically I rant about things, and I also talk about TV and that sort of. But the main content that's coming off my channel at the moment is Dying Light. My friends and I, last night, we recorded 5 hours worth of Dying Light, where we started off with nothing, like with bits of broom handles and that sort of thing, and bed sticks. And we ended up with the katanas, flaming swords, and guns.
Wow, okay.
And doing leap of faith off the top of the towers, and climbing up to the top of the bridge and stuff like that. So it's an evolution of our characters and how we managed to build ourselves up over like 5 or 6 episodes. So that'll be coming out at some point. I think the first episode I'm uploading currently. Yeah. So that'll be something that if you do want to check out, it'll be there. And again, my opinion on Five Nights at Freddy's will be around too, if you'd like to check that out.
Right.
And that's what I do.
Awesome. Well, for Gaming Wildlife, I'm not 100% sure when I'm going to be able to post this. I'm going to try and post this on Thursday. I don't know. It just depends on when I'll be able to get the footage for Five Nights at Freddy's because that's what's been playing in the background. But we've got an episode coming up about the dress, and we're kind of doing.
Oh yes.
We're doing kind of a little variant on it. I don't know if it's been posted already. The other episodes that we've got this month, we're actually doing a film festival this month, and we're doing
Well, it's for both months, but we're finally getting to it.
Yeah, there's a big film festival that we've been participating in. That at the end of the month, we will either post a link to a video that we've made, or we're gonna just directly post the video that we've made for the film festival. Beyond that, we've got an episode coming up about video game arcades. We've got an episode.
Nice.
We've got another episode of Review Roulette where our friend Jim is going to talk about Final Fantasy II.
Is that the one that did the RPG talk?
No, actually, that's Jim. Jim is the alpha gamer. He plays.
RPG Talk was John Bond.
Yeah, John. Yeah, John Bond helped us write an episode about arcades.
The one Asian guy that we know.
Yes. Well, one of the two Asian people we know.
Okay.
And the other episode that we're doing, we're actually going to be making a music video based off of a song that a friend of ours, Nathan Towns, wrote, and he's like, "Hey, would you guys be willing to put this on your channel?" And the music video has to deal with video games, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
The guy who wrote our theme song and makes plenty of other stuff for other things.
Yes, and also I'm going to post our theme song that week so that people, because people have been asking us about that, and I was going to post 2 videos that week, one of the music video that we were going to put together and one of the actual theme song for Gaming Wildlife, so people could download those. So yes, thank you all for watching, and Adam, thank you for helping us with this again.
No problem, whenever you need me. Oh, and we also leaked, what was it? We leaked the id thing in April.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next episode is going to be id Software. That script is already written.
Yeah, we wrote the last 2. Hooray!
Yes. And Adam basically wrote id Software kind of all by himself, and then he helped me a lot with writing the ZeniMax episode because I was a little bit stumped on that one. Adam, thank you very much for that. That was
no problem. Again, whenever you need me to help you out with things, I got you back.
And thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. And
thanks for watching, guys.
This was a coincidence.
Oh yeah, this
wearing the same shirts.
Yeah, we're both wearing the same shirts because Rock Chuck Jayhawk 11 Big 12 wins in a row. And
I just wore it because it was the only shirt I had today.
And we will see you next time when we discuss the state of gaming.
Oh yes.
Jim's got the flu.
I couldn't resist. You can do it again. It's just. You can do it again. It was just. I wasn't expecting it.